The second blessing of our Amidah can be particularly confounding. This blessing, which we have already said once silently and once together this morning, begins with, "You are mighty forever, Adonai, you give life to the dead." And after several more references to what sounds like bodily resurrection, it concludes, "You are faithful in bringing life to the dead. Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives life to the dead." Maimonides identifies belief in bodily resurrection as one of the 13 core principles in Jewish belief. Yet, as foundational as this prayer is to our daily liturgy, and as much as we revere Maimonides, I don't think that a belief in bodily resurrection is a core tenet of our theology in the 21st century. In fact, the Reform and Reconstructionist movements have adapted a different wording to this blessing. Instead of Mechaye Meitim, who gives life to the dead, their prayer books read Mechaye et HaKol, blessing God who gives life to all. I know that personally, I'm not quite ready to move away from the classic wording of the liturgy. So what meaning can we make of this blessing? Regardless of the intentions of the ancient authors, we don't have to interpret these words literally. The idea of reviving the dead can be a powerful metaphor for many things in our daily lives. The ability to wake up from sleep each morning feeling renewed, the acknowledgement of a divine force with power greater than we can really understand, or the opportunity for revitalization anytime we feel we are flagging or don't quite have the strength to push on. We can certainly find meaning in these words outside of a narrow, literal interpretation. And in fact, metaphorical use of this blessing is encouraged by the Talmud. We learn in the tractate of Brachot, the section dealing with blessings and daily prayers, that when you see a friend for the first time after more than 12 months, you are supposed to recite this blessing. Praised are you, Adonai, ruler of the universe, who revives the dead. Obviously, this is not a literal resurrection. Rather, here, the rabbis of the Talmud are recognizing life's fragility. If we don't see someone or hear from them for more than a year, there's an inherent insecurity that something could be lost in that time. It could, sadly, be a loss of life, or more likely, over the course of a year, we risk losing the friendship and the special connection we had with that person. And so, this blessing of who gives life to the dead is counterintuitively one of great joy, filled with emotion and relief. In this section of the Talmud, there is another scenario the rabbis lay out. They ask, what blessing do you say if you haven't seen someone for at least 30 days? The answer they give is one of the most famous and beloved blessings in the Jewish canon, Shehecheyanu. Blessed are you, Adonai, ruler of the universe, for granting us life, sustaining us, and for bringing us to this moment. This, too, is a blessing of joy and relief. Evidently, the rabbis believed that distance does in fact make the heart grow fonder, and they give us a framework to express our gratitude that our lives are filled with these moments of connection, love, and reconciliation. The Shehecheyanu has proven to be an especially powerful blessing over the last 2 years. It is the blessing we say when we revisit a familiar experience for the first time in a long time, or when we experience something entirely new. As we've been searching for ways to recognize just how special it is to be able to go about our routines, to experience a sense of normalcy amidst the pandemic, I've heard requests from many of you to include Shehecheyanu in our communal services and events. In assessing these two blessings side by side, however, the question arises, why the difference? When we see someone we haven't seen in a while, can't we just say either the Shehecheyanu or the blessing who gives life to the dead, regardless of how long it has been? The difference comes from a saying derived from Psalm 31 that states that a person, alive or dead, is not forgotten from the heart until more than 12 months have passed. There's something significant about the passing of an entire year that changes the status of our experience and our memories. Something that shapes how we relate to our friends and loved ones. It's hard to know where our own experiences of grief and loss fit into any 12-month cycle. While our inclination may be to say that a year feels familiar because of our own experience with Jewish mourning traditions and the fact that we say Kaddish for a parent for 12 months, in fact, that tradition is derived from this teaching. Grief does not adhere to a schedule or fit into neat blocks of time. Rather, grieving is an unpredictable, boundless experience. We saw this ourselves just last week as we watched and read news coverage of the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. I know many of us were instantaneously transported to a Tuesday morning 20 years ago. Grief and shock transcend time. Stuart Kestenbaum, the poet laureate of the state of Maine, writes that grief arrives in its own time. It doesn't announce itself or knock on the door of your heart. Suddenly, it's right behind you, looking with great pity at the back of your neck and your shoulders, on which it spends days placing a burden and lifting it. Grief arrives in its own sweet time. Sweet because it lets you know that you are alive. Time because what you are holding becomes the only day there is. The sun stops moving, the sky grows utterly quiet and impossibly blue. Behind the blue are the stars we can't see, and beyond the stars, either dark or light, both of which are endless. It is hard to bear that grief, to be continuously caught up in a process that is so unknowable, so unpredictable. We each stand in front of floodgates of loss, never quite knowing when the grief may come spilling out. And amidst that insecurity, we hold on to so much, to personal loss, memories of communal tragedies that we have suffered as a nation, as the Jewish people, as part of a broken world. Yet we are also so fortunate because we have this checkpoint along the journey, a set opportunity on Yom Kippur morning to come together for Yizkor. We know better than to let a year pass without checking in with ourselves and our loved ones, bringing their memories close to us and honoring them amidst the intensity of the Yom Kippur experience. And so, our prayer today is not Mechayei HaMeitim. We don't need God to give life to the deceased. Today, it isn't God who holds the power to give life to the dead. It is us. By never letting that full year of memory elapse, we never lose hold of those ties that bind us to our beloved family members who shaped us. We don't need to worry about whether the blessing of the resurrection of the dead is literal or not, because we take it upon ourselves, through Yizkor, through Yortzeit observance, through our prayers, through sharing stories and memories, to ensure that we keep those closest to us alive. As we head into the Yizkor, let's focus on the words of the Shehecheyanu. Blessed are you, Adonai, ruler of the universe, for granting us life, sustaining us, and for bringing us to this moment. When we say this blessing, it is directed at God, But take a moment and think about those verbs. Who are the people in your life who have granted you life, sustained you, and brought you to where you are today? Before we move into the service of memory, let's take a moment and say the familiar words of the Shehecheyanu together and share the appreciation, wonder, and even joy for everyone in our hearts who has brought us here today. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Adonai, ruler of the universe, for granting us life, sustaining us, and for bringing us to this moment.